Based on preliminary assessments, our country received some damages from the passing of Tropical Storm Ernesto. According to the Meteorological Department of St. Martin, at 5 p.m. Tuesday, August 13, Tropical Storm Ernesto was located 65 miles west of St. Martin. The tropical storm warning will be discontinued at 8 p.m. this evening. However, a flood watch and a small craft warning remains in effect for the country. Ernesto is currently at its closest point to the island. The highest wind gusts recorded at the airport this afternoon was 60 miles per hour. Regarding our current state of affairs, Ernesto passed our country and is moving further away. Concerning our port facility, the Port St. Martin Group announced that based on preliminary assessment of port facilities, there is no sign of infrastructure damage from the high seas. No ships will be able to dock at our port facilities until the sea state subsides. Concerning our airport, services will resume at the Princess Juliana International Airport on Wednesday, August the 14th at 7 a.m. Visitors currently on the island will have to check with their prospective airlines concerning their departure flight information. Concerning education, the Safety and Emergency Management Committee will request boards to conduct readiness assessment reports to ensure that everything is in place for the start of the new school year. Schools will remain closed on Wednesday, August 14th. The Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport will officially announce when schools will reopen. Concerning our road network infrastructure, based on preliminary assessments carried out by the Ministry of Romy, most of the road network is clear. Clearing crews have been busy removing some downed trees and other small debris on Tuesday. These works will continue. Motorists should be aware of some flooding in low-lying areas and should drive with caution. Concerning our businesses and government services, all businesses can return to regular business operations as of Wednesday, August the 14th. All government offices will reopen on Wednesday, August the 14th at the regular scheduled hours. Decisions taken by government under the advice of its various ministries and departments was based on not underestimating the potential impact of the storm. My fellow St. Martiners and visitors, thank you for your attention and for remaining off the road network by prioritizing your safety and well-being during the passing of Tropical Storm Ernesto. Even though the tropical storm was not a direct hit, it still had considerable influence on our weather. I implore the nation to continue to remain at a heightened level of preparedness for the hurricane season. Our country and the region are now approaching the peak period of 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. Continue to remain vigilant and prepared. Remember, we still need to exercise caution tonight and tomorrow as a flood watch and small craft advisory remain in effect. Additional updates will be provided via the Department of Communication of Government and also through the different media outlets on Wednesday, August the 14th. Please stay tuned to them for official and additional information as we get back to normalcy. Thank you, may God bless you, and may God bless our nation.
By now, the first set of containerized generators should be connected and online. So before I continue, let me say kudos to the hard-working men and women of GEBE and the persons who assisted them. From all the announcements by the government and GB, however, it is evident that this is but a first small step towards the restoration of normalcy in the electricity sector. Two other phases are to follow. They're called the short-term and long-term solutions. And the first one, the short-term solution, is to be operational by October of this year. In my opinion, it makes little sense at this time to keep rehashing how the current two options were chosen and whether there were other feasible alternatives that could have been pursued. Our focus right now should be on the time between now and restoration of normalcy. With outages expected to continue, a plan should be put in place for our schools for a safe supply of fuel and a relief program to assist businesses and consumers to tide this over. To start with the latter, disconnections for outstanding amounts should be done with the utmost care. It must be stated that our economy has taken a serious blow due to the unreliable supply of electricity. Random disconnections would be a nail in the coffin of especially small businesses. So I call on the government and GEBE to reassess this disconnection policy for now. It has not come out often enough in the dialogues with and about GB's board and management that this government-owned company is governed by a concession agreement with targets and duties to be performed by the company. GB is also governed by its articles of incorporation that speak of an annual acquit and discharge of the management board from any liability for its management, and the same acquit and discharge for the supervisory board for its supervision. It would be interesting to ascertain when the last time was that these basic statutory obligations have been met for NVGEBE. And then there is the matter of appointments, interim, temporary, or otherwise, for the management board of GB, the so-called C functions, or the related position of special representative. We cannot continue in this constant crisis mode. And with a lack of synchronization between land and project developments, it will get much worse before it gets better. Still, the government should not jump to hasty conclusions because of the current crisis we find ourselves in. Because what we see today is the stability, no pun intended, of the past 4 years swiftly unraveling and showing a reign of procrastination, individualism, and deceit. Regretfully, all of this to the detriment of the people of St. Martin. The government of St. Martin has requested technical assistance from the World Bank to assist with developing an energy roadmap of sorts, and so I advise strongly to await this report before decisions such as appointments are taken. Stopgap measures are not going to hack it. In addition, based on this roadmap/business plan, it would have to be decided, given our experience with the interwovenness of government-owned companies, with the politics of the day, whether we continue with our energy generation and supply in this manner. In other words, with a monopoly based on a concession agreement. Some steps to consider are immediately a relief to business and residents, especially our seniors, a mitigation plan for the short term, for schools, for our safety, etc. I think of road lights, etc. Review GB's concession obligations and responsibilities, and establish with GEBE a clear roadmap to normalcy.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah, your social and health insurances.
Enemies cover the truth in sugar and fool you into eating it.
It's a snap election, an election to give the people a chance again.
Let's talk about GB. Let's talk about electoral reform.
We want to make sure that the country goes back to the people.
When we pointed out the worst government in the history of this country, the reduction of property tax to increase business in St. Martin.
For righteousness, unity, and love empowerment.
We are in a situation again that we are heading to the polls.
Can't come up. We have shown to be the people's choice.
Let's talk about the current Prime Minister. And he said that he accused you actually of trying to break government. He said you had a meeting and he invited you to his office to have this meeting, not knowing, and you fully well knew that you were in the back trying to stab him in the back because you were trying to lure one of the other candidates or incoming members on your side to break government.
You know, I think the people of St. Martin should go back and check history and see who has broken governments over the years, and the Honorable Prime Minister is one of them. So don't be hypocritical, one. Two, I was not, and I reiterate, not actively seeking to break any government. This young man who left the coalition, actually from back in June last year, was trying to run on my slate for whatever reason. Because of the whole affiliation with Mr. Arundel, I did not
Entertain that, yeah.
I didn't entertain it, and he did not bother. He stayed where he was, and then he moved on. It's unfortunate that his naivete was used against him, but he was not happy where he was. He came, and he was the one speaking to us. So I didn't go seeking him, and at that day when I met with the Honorable Prime Minister, I was not aware that he was speaking to people within my party. Okay, so there was no planning and preparation. My meeting with the Honorable Prime Minister was supposed to take place when we were transitioning. But due to his schedule at the time, and then I needing to travel for Parliament, it did not happen. Okay. So as soon as we were able to, we had that sit down. I had just returned. We had that sit down. He was able to tell me, now he sees what we're talking about. Now he understands. And I was able to share with him certain things, some do's, some don'ts, you know, some bottlenecks, etc. Some things that needed his immediate attention that maybe wasn't written in the documents, that were too sensitive to put in documents. So I didn't in any way hold back from him. So he cannot in any way tell anyone that I was, you know, I was being, you know, doing subterfuge or purposefully not or giving him a side. I didn't have to go to that meeting if that was the case.
Yeah.
If I knew the government was going to fall 2 days later, I was not meeting with him. Let's call it that. Okay, so to his account, he should check himself, and he should check the manner in which they were treating said member, because governments have fallen in the past for different reasons. And this member was stating that he was being left out of everything, his voice wasn't being valued, and I don't know what changed a few days later, but I know when he came, he was like, I really don't want another election. And I told him, that is up to the Prime Minister. And when you handle things emotionally, and when you take decisions from an emotionally upset, like I told you before, sometimes you need to stop. Sometimes you need to breathe and listen to your advisors before you take decisions. But his first step was to call for an election, and that's where we are today. And it's the reset we need, so I thank him for calling the election. It wasn't me, but we'll take it, because clearly the people are seeing that a lot of the work that you had a lot to say about before is a little bit too much for you to handle.
Okay. Talking about that, let's talk a little bit about electoral reform. Article 59 and Article 33.
33.
33. Let's start with Article 59, where we talk. I believe Article 33 talks about the screening process, But let's talk about Article 59 and this.
In terms of the Prime Minister and the
yes.
Council of Ministers having that authority to call for elections. And I've heard others speak on it, and I was happy actually because I started a process of surveying the community as to what do we want to see in electoral reform. We didn't latch on to Article 59 per se, but in terms of what do you want to see, in terms of how do we elect people, etc. That survey was discussed in Parliament. Parliament at that time didn't tell me, hey, we're also doing this. But when I came into Parliament full-time, as of May, I was able to see the documentation of what they had done thus far, and that they put out a term, an RFP, like a call for people to do some research into it. And Article 59 was never intended to be used the way that it has been used several times here and in other places within the kingdom. It should be used when there is no other way out. Back then, the intention was the governor of the Netherlands Antilles could issue Article 59 if they saw that there is no clear majority in Parliament or Parliament is doing things out of order. Yes? That's not the case here. Yes, maybe you feel a member of Parliament leaving a coalition is out of order, but if there's a new coalition, it's not ungovernable. Yeah? Not because you're out. And other prime ministers have done it. Yeah, including my former prime minister at the time. So I understand that people do it, but you have to do it understanding that you can then throw the blame on other people. And so putting stricter regulations in place as to when Article 59 should be called is something I would wholeheartedly support.
Okay.
Wholeheartedly.
It took something like 4 months before candidates were actually sworn in. So I believe this is Article 33. We'll talk about the screening of candidates. What are your views on that?
So there's an ordinance that talks about the integrity of ministers and office holders. So while the screening process isn't regulated in a law, the law states that a minister should be X, Y, and Z. And based on that, then, back in 2013-14, when our government had fallen again, and anyways, it was coming up to 2014 election, the government was told, put a screening position in place or else we will screen you. That's coming from the Dutch. Our then governor, with the sitting government, decided to put a national decree in place that would live up to the points in our law for integrity of ministers. So they put together a questionnaire, you answer a questionnaire, they fact check the questionnaire, and if you have issues within that who's putting forward your name cannot answer, then it's not recommended that this person continue. So they would call it, they failed the screening process. One of the two main things that have been held up is if you're under investigation, or if you have serious other types of criminal issues and challenges with the finances. We've had people who had serious financial issues with the tax office and therefore could not sit as Minister of Finance.
Especially of finance.
You understand?
Yeah.
And in the case of the recent candidate ministers, it was criminal records and or investigations, ongoing criminal investigations. Do we want to really put the country at risk to put somebody as a minister and then they get dragged down and arrested and put in jail? That reflects negatively on the entire community. And so that's why in the times where I was the person putting forward names, I would tell the party and or coalition partner or my own party if that was the case. I don't think we ever had it as a case in our party. Oh yes, back then. With Christopher, Christopher cannot proceed. And that is why Christopher left the party. Let me just interject, because he couldn't get what he wanted. And now he was able to form a government with others and he still couldn't get what he wanted. Because they stopped the case and then they restarted the case because of issues with the case back then. So I'm not attacking. This is not an attack on anyone. This is a factual thing that is ongoing. Both him and several others are still under investigation for the term that he functioned as minister.
Your social and health insurance is Your social and health insurance.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurances.
Brutal killing of 8 innocent Jamaicans, which has prompted the government to mobilize all its resources to respond, is something that I make a priority. And all our security forces, the JCF, JDF, MOCA, our intelligence services, all our security forces have been mobilized in this regard. The Deputy Prime Minister has just given an update on the declaration of a state of public emergency for the parish of Clarendon. This is as a result of our analysis of the intelligence available and the very high probability, indeed, I would go as far as to say, even though it was not said by Acting Commissioner Bailey, attempts at retaliation and reprisals. As Minister Chang pointed out, that when incidents like these have occurred in the past, when you take the accumulated murders that are connected to the initial event, you end up in 10s and 20s and 30s. So we are very careful in ensuring that this incident does not spark a string of additional murders, and therefore the implementation of the SOE in Clarendon. The SOE is not designed to be an inconvenience to the citizens, and the security forces will be using this additional power in a very targeted and strategic way. I want to assure the public that our security forces, in as much as we are focused on getting the criminals and those who are responsible, we are also focused on protecting the human rights of our citizens. The rights of the victims, clearly, in my opinion, should take priority, but we also have a duty as a civilized country to show the criminals that we act within the law. So I want that point to be absolutely clear, and you would have seen this in the conduct of the police force in their operations so far. They have been very professional, very strategic, very targeted, and it is not just talk. Talk is important. We must bring the public along. We must share information. The public must be aware of what is happening. But we must also report progress. We must report actions, and we must report challenges. And that is what we have been doing as we try to come to grips with what has happened in our nation. In the last press conference, somebody said, would you describe this as a mass shooting? I would say if you were to use the language in a semantic way, yes, it is a mass shooting, but mass shootings have a particular connotation. I think a more accurate description that this is armed, organized violence perpetrated by criminal enterprises. So this is a gang-related event which is over and above what the average would have been. And so we're going to treat it in that way and focus on gangs. We have had the traditional notion that gangs are a social response to poverty, disenfranchisement, unemployment. I would suggest to those persons who hold this view that that is an outdated notion. The gangs that we are dealing with are highly resourced. They are not poor. They are not struggling for money. They operate as an enterprise. They have structure, they have leadership, and they have systems and rules. And I want you to also bear in mind that they operate on intelligence. They study our police force, they use information operations, they use our banking system, they use our telecommunication system, they use social media. They are well structured and well organized. And what they do is that they entrench themselves in communities and take advantage of poor, dispossessed youth. They give them guns, they use them as lookouts, they use them to commit crimes. They use the term, they lock the area. So they take over our young people, our unsuspecting women, and they use them as foot soldiers, as pawns in the game. And that is what we're dealing with.